Hello guys and welcome back to Planet 40k. In today's video we're going to be talking about two units here, the Lictor as well as the Deathleaper. We're going to be doing a guide to using these two units, or these two models, within the 40k game in the Arcs of Omen chapter approved book. So we're going to be talking about ways to use them, stratagems, the secondary objectives, that kind of thing. A little bit more of an advanced tactical video rather than a basic bite-sized review with a rating at the end of it. So yeah, without further ado, let's get on with the video. So let's just get their stats out of the way because they've got a couple of different stats, but the majority of the stats are the same. They're both moving 10 inches, they've both got weapon skill 2+, ballistic skill 6+, strength 7, toughness 5. Now they've got leadership 8 and a 4+ armor save. Now the wounds and attacks are slightly different here, whereas the Lictors have only got 5 wounds, whereas the Deathleapers have 7. And the attacks, the Lictors have 6, the Deathleaper has 7. So there's only a couple of stats that are different there from one another, but the actual point is quite a difference. You've got 70 points for the Lictor, 120 for the Deathleaper. That's a difference of 50. So what are you getting with these units? So let's talk about some of the similarities first to get that out of the way. They've both got the Hidden Hunter ability, which is during deployment you can set the model up in hiding instead of setting it up on the battlefield, and if you do so in your reinforcement step or one of your movement phases, you can set the model up wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge or any terrain features, as long as you're more than 9 inches away from enemy models, or if it's in your own deployment zone, it can be only 6 inches rather than 9. You also get to reroll your charge roll when you're coming in from that roll. Now just a key note here that it does mention you can be within 6 inches of any terrain features. Now I've had a few people in the comments disagreeing with one another with what an actual terrain feature is, so I just wanted to highlight what a terrain feature actually is. A terrain feature is actually hills, obstacles, area terrain as well as buildings. So hills are included in that, and these guys can pop out of those said hills. You could even take that a little bit further with one of the hunt biomorphologies, which is augmented furiosity, to add 1 to your charge rolls for units with this adaptation. So while we're talking about stratagems, we may as well go on to another stratagem, which is Invisible Hunter. Again, because they've got the Lictor keyword, we can talk about this one. If they've not been set up on the battlefield this turn, you can remove your model from the battlefield and then set them up again on your reinforcement step of your next movement phase, more than 9 inches away from enemy models, but wholly within 9 inches of a battlefield edge. So effectively this is a redeploy. Now maybe you're going to use this because you're getting them out of bother, maybe there's some sort of primary objective at the other side of the battlefield, maybe it will relate to behind enemy lines or some other secondaries like raise the banners. But yeah, there's lots of different regions that you could be using Invisible Hunter for your Lictor or Deathleaper. Now going back to their abilities, they've both got chameleonic skin, although one is more advanced than the other one. So the Lictor has the standard chameleonic skin. So any attacks made against your Lictor is a -1 to hit it, not too bad. Also, while it's receiving the benefits of cover, it cannot be selected as a target of a ranged attack if the attacker is more than 12 inches away. So yeah, get this guy in cover. That's better than the Lookout Sir ability in fact, because it just simply cannot be targeted even by sniper rifles, for example. And then the third thing is the model gets a 5+ invulnerable save. Nice. Now the Deathleaper's got the superior version of this, the superior chameleonic skin. Effectively the same abilities here, except it's got a 4+ invulnerable save rather than a 5+. So this is going to give both these models a little bit of utility. You can either stick them in your back lines, better of course if they're in cover, because then they're not going to be targeted, and you can stick them on your home deployment as a very cheap way of actually doing that. Alternatively, you can pop this model out in turn 2 or turn 3, ideally turn 3 I think, because there's going to be less models on the battlefield, less models that are going to screen from your models coming in, and you could again be using this model to score behind enemy lines, do raise the banners, or to simply harass enemy units. In fact, while we're talking about harassment, both of these models are pretty good at murdering infantry units. They've both got the Fight First ability with their Inhumane Swiftness abilities, which of course is also going to help when they're in that fight phase. Now when they do get into a fight, they've got the Lictor Claws and Talons, which are a melee weapon. They are Strength User, -3 AP and 2 damage, so pretty good at killing standard Space Marine models or other 2 wounded models within the game. It doesn't have to be Space Marines of course, it's just an easy go-to as an example. Now the Lictors have got 6 attacks at strength 7, the Deathleaper 7 attacks at strength 7. Now bear in mind they're hitting on a 2+, and Armour of Contempt is no longer a thing anymore, so that -3 AP is -3 AP, and in fact you can even better that with some of the High Fleet adaptations. For example, the Behemoth High Fleet will make them strength 8, so going up against toughness 4, you've got that magic number of strength 8, you're wounding them on a 2+, or if you're going with the Kraken High Fleet, you're going to get that extra AP, putting it to -4 AP. Space Marines or 3+ armor save models won't get an armor save, of course, unless they've got an in-1 save. Now there's in fact a few more abilities that we've not yet spoken about purely for the Deathleaper alone, so not the Lictor here, just the Deathleaper. He's got It's Out There, which is an aura. While an enemy unit is within 6 inches of this model, they cannot start to perform action, so you can actually time this quite nicely. The other ability it's got is Fear of the Unseen. So while an enemy unit is within engagement range, they cannot be selected for stratagems used by your opponent. That's going to affect their shooting or their fighting, so they're not going to be able to use any stratagems whatsoever for their units. That one is a bit situational, but yeah, it can sometimes assist you. So we're going to look over some of the keywords. In fact, we're going to start with the Deathleaper here. And the one I want to pick out for this moment in time is the character keyword. And there's 2 things that relate to being a character in the game of 40k. The first is a Warlord trait. Now he does have a set Warlord trait, it's locked in to Alien Cunning. But Alien Cunning is actually quite a decent one. So what is Alien Cunning? So the Warlord is going to gain objective secured, pretty good. Also, it's going to be counted as 5 models when determining holding onto an objective marker, also pretty good. And the Warlord could start to perform an action even if it advanced or fell back this turn. Pretty good as well, especially when he's got 10 inches of movement. He could be getting onto an action objective, again, raise the banners for example, and doing that action. Now that's for 1 command point if you wanted to take that. Now you would have to use the Hive Predator stratagem before the game for 1 command point. This is going to allow a character to have a Warlord trait, because of course within the new Arcs of Omen chapter approved book there is a stratagem now called Warlord trait for 1 command point, and you're only giving it to your actual Warlord. So this is a way of bending the rules to give another character a Warlord trait. Now there's something else that relates to the character keyword in the game of 40k, and it's called Heroic Intervention. So you're selecting a character that's within 3 inches horizontally or 5 inches vertically to perform a heroic intervention in your opponent's charge phase. Now there doesn't need to be any ongoing fights happening, you can literally just do this if you're in those perimeters, and the only other restriction here is the fact that they've got to end closer to the closest eligible model. So that's something the Lictors can't do, but the Deathleapers can. So now I want to talk about the secondary objectives that are available to the Lictor and the Deathleaper. The first one is the main one here, behind enemy lines. This one is really good for both of these models because they've got that ability where they can pop in, as well as that stratagem where it pops them out and pops them back in again on the next movement phase. But you're scoring 3 victory points for every single unit that can do this, where they can get behind enemy lines. So you could take 2 Lictors for example and do this, and you'll be scoring maximum 4 victory points per battle round. That one, if you are planning your list around behind enemy lines, I would definitely advise Lictors or Deathleapers. Now as for the next one, which is Cranial Feasting, both of these models have got the Feeder Tendrils keyword. That's quite key for this secondary objective in particular. Now this objective is quite similar to Assassination. You're trying to take out characters, but you're also able to take out unit sergeants and unit leaders within the game. So when you take out a unit sergeant or a unit leader, or unit champion as they call it, you roll a d6 and you're adding 1 to the result if the model's got the Feeder Tendrils keyword, which they do. On a 6+, you're gaining a CP back. Now this will be a 5+, again, because they've got the Feeder Tendrils. Now you score 3 victory points if you manage to get this just once in the battle. If you get that 5+ just once in the battle for killing a character or unit champion, that's 3 victory points right there. The second bullet point to this is scoring 1 victory point for killing a unit champion by a Hive Tendril unit in melee. So that will be another point each time that happens. Or alternatively, it could have been a character rather than a unit champion. If it was a character, that's going to be 3 victory points. And then finally, if you're slaying the Warlord and you're using one of these models, you're going to score an additional 3 points because again, they've got the Feeder Tendrils keyword and you've slayed them in melee. So there's a lot of points that you could potentially get here. And even if you don't, there's at least some CP to be gained. Now sticking with the keywords here, they've both got the infantry keyword, which means they can do secondaries such as raise the banners. You could do this multiple times in a single battle round. You pop the banners up, then on your next command phase you're going to be scoring 1 victory point per banner. Now this one probably isn't the best suited for a Lictor or Deathleaper, but they can at least pop the banners up. Then maybe you can stick one of your monsters on that same objective, because all you need to now do is just hold the banner up. That can be held by a monster, it could be held by any other unit in the game in fact, that isn't infantry. It doesn't have to just be infantry now. The only restriction here is you've got to put the banner up with an infantry model. Once it's done, you stick a monster on that objective with toughness 8 and you get your Lictors or Deathleapers to move on to the next objective. Another one that relates to the infantry keyword is retrieve battlefield data. This can be done by infantry or bikers. Of course, there's no bikers in the Tyranids Codex, but infantry units that can do an action in all 4 of the quarters within the battlefield. Now these guys are pretty quick, they've got that 10-inch movement, and we've already seen with the Alien Cunning Warlord trait, you can get your Deathleaper to actually advance and still do the action without it failing. Now this will be capped at 12 victory points if you get all 4 quarters, so it isn't the best option, raise the banners you can max out at 15, but it takes a lot more work to actually keep those banners up and running all game long. So that is my advanced tactics for the Lictor as well as the Deathleaper today. If you've got any more advanced tactics, put them down in the comments below. We'll have a chat about it. Maybe I've missed something. And also put down if you want to see any other videos, if you want to put down units that you want me to discuss in future videos, yeah, in the comments down below. Also don't forget to subscribe on your exits. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.